places, I end up in crisis. All this time, I wake up screaming from dreaming. One day I'll watch as you're leaving, 'cause you got tired of my scheming. For the last time, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem, it's me. At tea time, everybody agrees. I'll stare directly at the sun, but never in the mirror. It must be exhausting, always rooting for the anti-hero. Sometimes I feel
You're welcome, Swifties. As if you haven't been playing this track and so many of her other songs on repeat for, I don't know, a year or so now, since the Toronto stops on the Eras concert tour were announced. I chose that one because the interwebs told me that it was Taylor Swift's most successful song on the charts, spending 8 weeks at number 1. It debuted at number 13, and it had more than 17 million plays on Spotify in its first 24 hours of release back in 2022. I am not a Swiftie. I am the furthest thing from. I don't think I could pick her out of a crowd walking down a street, other than maybe to pay attention to the crowd following her in that crowd. But anyway, we do know that she is the biggest artist in the world, and she opens her series of shows in Toronto tonight. It's kind of the story in this part of the world, isn't it? So Anti-Hero from Taylor Swift starts our show today. Good morning. It is 6 minutes after 9 on this Thursday, the 14th of November. I was plugged into something a little bit more local. I mean, it feels like with Taylor Swift so close, she is kind of local right now. But I was driving home last night listening to the Leafs game on this radio station, and of course the Leafs were losing. Of course they didn't ultimately lose the game, which is the best part. But I was listening to a rather dejected sounding Joe Bowen and Jim Ralph as Toronto was trailing 3-1 in the third. But then all of a sudden, a glimmer of hope as a local boy got the Leafs within one, right?
If it is in fact a goal, it'll be the 4th of the season for Steven Lorenz, and you've got all of these offers, Benoit, Tanev, Domi, McCabe, Holmberg, Camp, Reeves, that have not scored, and the Kitchener native has found himself to have a hot hand here, and he's hoping a hot thigh. Here we go.
Upon review of the play, the puck was propelled in by the player's leg, so we have no goal.
Damn it, I was right.
Damn it, Joe, you were right. I don't know how hot Steven Lorenz's thighs are, but not hot enough to have that goal count last night. So it remained 3-1. The Leafs had another goal called back later, but they would get goals in the third period from William Nylander and from Mitch Marner, which led to...
Marner kicks at it, but it comes right out in front. Shot, big save made, and a race for the loose puck. Goaltender coming out, no. Here's Tavares in on a breakaway and a goal. Scores! Johnny Toronto scores!
JT in OT, OMG. And the Leafs came back to win the game last night. But really, the reason that it caught my ear as I was driving home last night is all the talk about the successful early season for one Steven Lorenz. Kitchener native, won the Stanley Cup last season with the Florida Panthers and almost had his 4th goal of the season last night with his almost hometown team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Bottom line is, Lorenz getting some love on the broadcast. By extension, the city of Kitchener gets some love on the broadcast, and we love watching our local performers do their thing, whether it be in sports, music, art. You take your pick.
It's the final countdown.
All right, let's get to that Farwell Show 5 for this Thursday morning. Number 1, I feel like I don't really need to tell you this, but if I don't tell you this, you'll probably be wondering, I mean, Farwell, if your Farwell Show 5 is supposed to be the things that are important for me to know today, why would you not tell me that Taylor Swift is playing the first of her 6 sold-out shows tonight in Toronto? So there you have it. That's number 1. If you leave right now, you might make it to Rogers Centre in time for the show. Number 2, Fight for Farmland says the changing economic landscape after Donald Trump's re-election in the United States means the Wilmot Land Assembly should be brought to an immediate halt. The group says Trump's opposition to EV subsidies only heightens public concern, while his potential rollback of the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act threatens to further deter the need for large battery production sites in North America, leaving the future of EV-related industrial developments in question. We'll be talking more about the re-election of Donald Trump and its impact on the Ontario economy just after the 9:30 news this morning. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 today, a Toronto teen has been charged with murder in the shooting of a 28-year-old man in Kitchener earlier this year. Waterloo Regional Police responded to reports of gunshots on Gray Street the morning of January the 25th and found a man dead outside a home. A 17-year-old boy was arrested yesterday, charged with first-degree murder. A second suspect remains at large. Number 4, an Ontario school board is investigating after a song about peace associated with support for Gaza was featured in Remembrance Day ceremonies at an Ottawa high school. The song's inclusion sparked a backlash from some parents. Media reports say the Arabic language song titled Haza Salam was played during a slideshow of Canadian soldiers and that some students and parents were upset about the music choice. The Ottawa Carleton District School Board now says it's looking into the issue to ensure it's addressed, quote, appropriately and meaningfully. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the Christmas tree has arrived at Carl's Air Square outside Kitchener City Hall. The tree is sourced from a local residential property whose owners want it removed. A second tree will be installed later on Gaukel Block in downtown Kitchener. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Thursday morning. A quick break. When we come back, I need your help. And so often I use this part of the show to appeal to your good nature, your intelligence, your support to help me out. On the line is a chocolate bar for yours truly, maybe even a second chocolate bar. You know how much I love me, my sugar and my sweets. Maybe you will be able to help me secure this chocolate bar. I won't share it with you. I'm not going to lie. I will not share it, but maybe you can help me get it. I just need a little help. I got to move something pretty big and heavy, but I'm hoping you can help. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. I mentioned this to you last week, but then there was this big election in the United States, and it really dominated the news cycle, as it should. In fact, it's still dominating to a degree today. We will be talking about Donald Trump's re-election and its impact on the Ontario economy just after the 9:30 news this morning. But I just wanted to preface this request with the reminder that I know I talked about it last week, but I didn't have the kind of time I would have liked to really do my from the bottom of the heart plea to you to help me out. So my boss walks in here late the week before the election, said, listen, you know that empty space in our workplace kitchen where a vending machine used to be? I don't even really know exactly what happened to the previous vending machine. I think it just stopped getting filled up, and I haven't the foggiest. It was here, and then it just fell into a state of emptiness, and it was removed. So the boss comes in and says, listen, we've found a new vending machine. It's at a distributor right here in the region. It's even got a tap feature on it so you don't have to carry coins or cash. Like, it's going to be great. We love it. Except we can't get it from said warehouse into our workplace. And he says, you get all kinds of traction on your Facebook page when you talk about random slices of pizza or cookies abandoned in the fridge. So you need to take it upon yourself to help us find the person who can move the vending machine into our radio station kitchen. I said, you know what, boss? I will take up the challenge. And he said, if you can do this, I will even buy you a chocolate bar from the vending machine. If you can do it by the end of the week, I will buy you 2 chocolate bars from the vending machine. More than anything, I want to prove that the boss's faith in this show and its excellent listeners is well placed. So that's really my motivation here, although it doesn't hurt to get a chocolate bar or 2 out of the deal. So because we got a little bit distracted by big, important news stories last week, and rightly so, I thought I could take time on a Thursday morning to go a little bit on the lighter side here and just say, hey, can you help me out? I mean, there's a chocolate bar on the line, not to mention the status of you as a listener of this show, as somebody who gets things done, who knows people, who can take on a task and complete it. All of that is on the line. I mean, it could be a mover who specializes in large items like this. Is there such a thing as a vending machine mover? Like, would that be too specific a job description? Probably. But I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm willing to put some sweat equity into this too. If you got a truck, and maybe a pump truck to go with it, and some straps, I think we can get this sucker in here. There's an elevator in the building. All I'm saying is this, and you can see the picture for yourself on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. There is an empty space in our workplace kitchen. A vending machine has been purchased to fill the empty space. We together, because we're going to do this together, will be the envy of all of my coworkers here at the radio station. They will be forever in our debt because we were the ones who got the vending machine into the kitchen. The question is, how can we do this? If you can help, shoot me an email, mike@570news.com, or just give me a call and let me know. Where do you go to get a vending machine moved into your workplace kitchen? I need this because I need that chocolate bar. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. 4 minutes away from 9:30, your update in the 570 News Center. Always time to hear from you, especially if you can help a guy out. Angela is on the phone with us this morning. Good morning, Angela.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm great.
Good.
I listen to you in the morning when I'm driving to work and at work, and so I heard your plea, and I understand because I love chocolate bars as well.
Angela, I think we just became best friends.
And I thought, you know what? We have a work van that we move our dog food with, 4 Strong Paws. And I was like, we move not just dog food, but we've moved people, stuff, you name it, it's been in that van. And I thought, you know what? We have straps. We have a ramp that goes up. We could definitely help you.
So, Angela, are you sure, like, this van is going to be big enough to fit a vending machine inside of it?
Well, I don't know the dimensions of the vending machine. To be honest, I haven't looked online. But as soon as I heard, I was like, yeah, I think that we could definitely move it. We move, like, if you think of skids, we move 2 skids at a time of food, dog food.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I think we could probably do it. I can almost stand up in the van, and I'm 5'7.5". So I think that maybe we could do it. I just need to know the dimensions.
Okay, I'm going to get those dimensions. And where'd you say it was? Strong Paws?
4 Strong Paws.
4 Strong
and
Paws.
We're out in New Hamburg.
I love the Berg. Okay, I'm
no,
gonna
me too.
I'm gonna shoot you an email, and we'll see if we can short. Can I find you through the website?
Yes, you can.
Okay, I'm gonna do that, Angela. We're gonna get this done together. Okay.
That sounds perfect. So you can get a chocolate bar and me too.
Okay. If I get the 2 chocolate bars, because we get this done quick enough, one of them's for you. That's a deal.
Oh, right. Awesome. Good. I love it. I love it.
Thanks,
Thank
Angela,
you.
and thanks for listening.
Yeah. Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We're getting somewhere. The boss challenged us, and I think the boss is going to lose the challenge. He's buying the chocolate bars. Donna, good morning.
Hey, Mike, I've already sent you an email.
Oh, good.
And I don't often tell the listeners where I work, but today, hey, proud to say as of this fall, 44 years at Kuntz Electroplating, or better known now as KEI this year.
I love KEI.
Thank you. And we love you. Go Rangers. Ooh, baby.
Go Rangers. I'm going to follow up on that email right away.
And I just wanted to give the guy, we're going with a new vendor here at Kuntz. He's known as the Stomach Man. Our vendor
Perfect.
previous to him was doing a very poor job. I won't mention their name. Give me a call if you want to know. No, seriously. And anyways, Richard would be probably more than glad to get that vending machine moved up 2 floors for you.
Brilliant. Donna, thank you so very much. Keep up the great work at KEI.
Take care.
You
Go
too.
Rangers.
Go Rangers. Bye-bye. I love Donna's enthusiasm for all things local. Zoltan the Magnificent, good morning.
Of course.
Of course.
Mike, the chocolate bar man.
Yes, sir. That's right. I'd love that nickname.
I don't know what I'm doing here. You got all these good-looking women helping you out. I was just going to suggest that you get yourself a real good appliance cart, one that has straps on the top.
Yep.
And on the bottom it has rollers so you can take it up steps. Generally, commercial hallways are 36-inch minimum, and the unit will not be any more than that. Have one person on the bottom at least, and another person on the top. Hold it at about a 30-degree angle, because if it's any more, you're going to be riding at the bottom of the steps. Just keep pulling it up. When you go to turn, set it upright on top of the landing, and twist it, and take it in, and Bob's your uncle.
Bob's our uncle. All right. We just need the person that's willing to be on the bottom as I'm trying to pull a vending machine up the stairs. Hey, Devin Robertson, our guy on the other side of the glass, you want to be on the bottom of that cart? Oh, yeah? He's nodding, yeah? Oh, perfect. We got it, Zoltan. You are magnificent. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. How will a second Donald Trump term affect Ontario's economy? It's a question posed by Brian Lewis in a recent op-ed. And wouldn't you know, Brian Lewis is with us on the show this morning. He's a senior fellow with the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy and the C.D. Howe Institute. Brian, good morning.
Good morning.
When we look back, even 8 years to Trump's first 4 years as president, and more recently to the most recent 4 years with Joe Biden, can we learn anything about the economic impact of these various presidencies on the province of Ontario?
Sure, Mike. Great question. I think we have learned a lot, and I think we've generally managed big policy changes in the United States reasonably well over the last 8 years. Of course, what's to come may be quite different, but I think we should take a little bit of comfort from and maybe give ourselves as a country, a province, a bit of credit for responding reasonably well to the changes. During the first Trump administration, Canada and Mexico and the United States renegotiated our trade agreement, and of course, we won't be surprised if the Trump administration wants to take another run at that. But we got to a pretty good outcome last time, where a lot of the manufacturing jobs in the province that could have been at risk, and including several in the auto sector, right around the Kitchener-Waterloo region, might have been a concern. We managed to get ourselves in a good place there. So that was good. And, the Trump administration also made some pretty big corporate tax changes that Canadian governments responded to maintain our tax competitiveness. So, I think we learned a lot from that period. And one thing we shouldn't lose sight of is we've also had to respond to things from the Biden administration. Certainly the big industrial subsidies made available, under the Inflation Reduction Act, which really wasn't about inflation, we've met those, and that's come at a big cost to us. But we've managed to maintain our place and maintain investments by responding appropriately. So, despite all the uncertainty that's sitting in front of us, I think there's a lot of reasons to have some confidence.
And of course, as you note, this time will be a little bit different. Not only does Donald Trump have the Oval Office, but the House, the Senate, there are some strong majorities here, and he's already begun assembling a team that has raised the occasional eyebrow. When you consider now where we're at in Ontario, what must we be wary of?
Yeah, I think we have to be wary of a number of things. I think a lot of people are going to focus on trade and tariffs. I actually think that the newer, different, and probably more immediate challenge might be the approach on illegal immigrants in the United States, and the commitment to basically remove them from the United States. Canada has traditionally been an open place when it comes to refugees and international immigrants. Our recent experience has been one that the federal government's pulled back from a bit, but I don't think we've ever seen anything like the potential, massive increase in people looking to come to Canada from the United States. And getting prepared for that, being ready for that, and thinking about strategies to deal with that, I think is actually the most immediate thing to really focus on.
So how do we get ready for that? What strategies can we employ here in Ontario to prepare ourselves best?
Yeah, I think the immigration, the federal government's really got to be thinking about the border and border security and thinking about places where people might want to cross into Canada, and then what we do about that. They'll have to probably ramp up their ability to consider refugee applications. Some of the people who potentially are going to be displaced from the United States might be coming here as refugees as well, and they have to figure out to what degree does that apply to these sort of people. So I think there's some basic steps that have to be made, mainly by Canadian Border and Security Services. We probably still remember what happened with Roxton Road in Quebec, for example. We don't want that to happen again, or more of those. And maybe the most important thing is, ideally, we could work out something with the United States where they would actually not be using Canada as a place to kind of just ship people that they're trying to move out of their country. I think that would be bad for everybody, not just the people themselves, who of course are the most heavily impacted, but that would be bad for Canada, probably ultimately bad for the United States.
Do you see any economic opportunity for us here in Ontario, Brian?
I do, actually. I mean, we're going to be really concerned about basically a new era of economic disruption, not knowing what's going to happen, things potentially being disrupted for the sake of disruption. But we have a lot of economic assets to play. We are, a very valuable trading partner with the United States. We're a big customer of their business. We host a lot of American companies here with factories and things like that. Trade and production between Canada and the United States, especially Ontario and the nearby states, is fairly highly integrated. So big disruptions in trade that's really a lose-lose proposition. Sure, we would lose, but so would a lot of American businesses, a lot of American workers, and a lot of American customers. So I think we've got that to play on. We're strong in some sectors and some things in Canada that the United States can really benefit from. We're strong in AI and technology. We're a good partner in that. We have lots of natural resources like oil and potash that the United States wants and needs. We have a lot of critical minerals. So we have assets to play, and I think in negotiating with the United States, which is what this will ultimately become about, I think it's useful to be proactive and to play up the value that Canada brings, and the assets that we have. And, I think a broader agreement that would bring in a lot of considerations, including, national defense and trade and economic sort of interests and technology, is probably the place to go.
I find the potential rollback of the Inflation Reduction Act in the States, which Trump has signaled he may indeed do, rather interesting in all of this, because, of course, we've found ourselves almost getting into a competition when it comes to the subsidies being offered right here in southwestern Ontario, St. Thomas, Windsor, et cetera. And then we get into the discussion of whether or not these subsidies or corporate welfare should be paid out. But we also, how do you compete with an economy so much larger than ours? So there may be two sides to that coin. If they roll it back in the States, it saves us money on these subsidies. But what about the investments that have already been made?
Yeah, great question. And I don't know what could or can be done about those investments. The terms of the contracts are probably something that most of us can't get to look at. My guess is that it would be hard to go back on contractual arrangements with companies that have started to make investments. I think that would be very hard to do. Now, with the power of the law, an Ontario government or a federal government could do that. It would just be really hard to do. But that's something I'm sure people will at least look at and think about if the Inflation Reduction Act gets rolled back. But at the very least, it'll save us from having to do more of these. And I think it's going to be an important principle for Canadian policymakers to be willing to match but not exceed American incentives. I think going past what companies can get in the United States to encourage them to maybe switch investment here, I think it was a really bad example of poking a bear right now. And I would suggest that we don't try to go any further than what companies can get in the United States.
Brian, really appreciate your perspective on the show. Thank you very much for being here.
Great to be here as always. Thank you very much.
Brian Lewis is a senior fellow with the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy and the C.D. Howe Institute. How will a second Trump term affect the economy here in Ontario? To some degree, it does remain to be seen, right? But this will be a different Trump term than we had 2016 through 2020, just because of the strong majorities that he now owns, the America First provisions that he likes to talk about. So the impact here in Ontario, I do wonder, and Brian Lewis makes a great point. I mean, not many of us will be privy to those contracts that were arranged when the subsidies, massive as they are, were provided to Stellantis in Windsor and to Volkswagen in St. Thomas and Honda up in Alliston, I guess, would be another example, and it goes on and on from there. But your thoughts. I always remember a friend of mine in the United States who said, and because he was very disappointed when Trump lost in 2020, because he said his 401k, which is, essentially their Canada pension plan, had never performed better than it did under Donald Trump. So economically, he was extremely happy with the first 4 years of Donald Trump. And it's okay to be happy economically. There are other issues that come into play. If it's all about the economy, stupid, that some other things will suffer. What's the balance look like from where you're sitting? Are you worried about the economy, or are you encouraged by what will happen economically now that Donald Trump is about to begin a second term in the United States? Let me know your thoughts. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
We have assets to play, and I think in negotiating with the United States, which is what this will ultimately become about, I think it's useful to be proactive and to play up the value that Canada brings and the assets that we have. And I think a broader agreement that would bring in a lot of considerations, including national defense and trade and economic sort of interests and technology, is probably the place to go.
That is Brian Lewis, a senior fellow with the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy and the C.D. Howe Institute. What does a second Trump term mean for Ontario's economy? He shares his thoughts. What are yours as we get set for the next 4 years of relations, economic and otherwise, with the United States? Let's go to the phones. Curtis, good morning.
Morning, Mike. I think that Trump is going to show Chrystia Freeland how much of a fraud and a fake she is at financing money, and that goes for their whole party. I hope he does squash it, and it'll show Canadians how terrible they are at managing money. That's all I got.
All right, Curtis, that's to the point, and your point is well taken and made. John, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good.
You'd mentioned the battery plant in St. Thomas for Volkswagen.
Yes, sir.
I am in the aggregate business, and I had guys with boots on the ground on that job. That job was put on hold over a month ago.
You mean just like the one up by Belleville? I remember that one getting put on hold, too.
Yeah, so something's up.
I had not heard that before.
Yeah, Yes, it's over a month ago that job was put on hold.
Do you suspect that was because of the pending results of the election in the U.S.?
I believe possibly, but possibly I think Volkswagen's changing its tune.
Oh, you mean not investing as heavily in electric?
Yep.
Interesting. John, appreciate the call. I will look further into that. First, I've heard of any sort of pause on the work down London Way. Interesting indeed. Mary, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. You had mentioned this in your first half hour, and as you know, I'm against the Wilmot land grab.
Yes.
I think that the regional council and the Wilmot council should really put a little brakes on this thing, because as you heard, that guy, they're now working at the Volkswagen, and we've already put an awful lot of money into the battery plants. I think they should just slow down a bit, and maybe they don't need that farmland. What do you think, Mike?
You know what, Mary? I think you're onto something there. And it's interesting because I received the media release from Fight for Farmland last evening, and I thought it makes sense that the group would send out said media release, because last week, I believe it was last week, Louisa D'Amato had a column in the Waterloo Region Record, and it quoted Tony Lamantia, who heads up our Economic Development Corporation here in the region. And even Tony was, I won't go so far as to say reluctant, but he certainly talked about the changing landscape and how with Trump presidency about to begin anew, it does sort of change the landscape when it comes to the electric vehicle industry, because we certainly know that Donald Trump takes a different view of these types of investments and this type of industry. So maybe even without Fight for Farmland having to ask that the assembly be stalled, it will be stalled anyway. We'll take a break. Come back with more of your calls. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Ahead of your 10 o'clock update in the 570 News Center, let's get back to the phones, hear more from you on the economic impact here in Ontario of another Trump presidency. Robert, good morning.
Good morning. I'm not part of any big companies or anything. I make parts and sell them online and ship them mostly to the U.S. So I sell and mostly and earn U.S. dollars. So I'm hoping that just if their economy is doing good, that their dollar's strong, and I get basically more Canadian dollars when I sell than I convert it back. So that's what I'm hoping for. The only strange thing I heard about the U.S. situation is they're going to ban all pre-shredded cheese because Trump wants to make America great again.
Robert, I am here for that all day. Well done. Great, Grate, you see, because you can grate cheese. Oh, so well played, sir. Jim, good morning.
Just three things. 3 words: Tesla, Elon Musk. I don't think there's a chance Trump will ban electric vehicles. I do think he may put a huge tariff on electric vehicles not made in the U.S. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate that. An excellent point, as, of course, one of Trump's new right-hand men is none other than the founder and CEO of Tesla. So it's not so much anti-EV. It may well be anti-EV anywhere but within the confines of the borders of the United States of God bless America. It's going to be an interesting time for sure. One of the big takeaways I have from our conversation with Brian Lewis from the Monk School of Global Affairs and the C.D. Howe Institute is that we have been through this before, right? When Trump was in his first term, beginning in 2016, we survived, and we're actually even doing reasonably well up until COVID came along. And then the Biden presidency presented its own set of challenges. not the least of which was the Inflation Reduction Act that we've tried in some areas to keep up with, for better or for worse. I mean, you can have opinions on that for sure, but we still have managed to continue churning along here in Ontario. I suspect that will continue, but there are going to be some changes this time around, especially now that the Republicans hold the Senate and the House along with the Oval Office. Interesting times ahead, to be sure. All right, on our show, interesting times ahead. This was brought up a couple of times yesterday, and I told you we're going to be talking about it on the show tomorrow at 10, and here we are. The facility dogs that are no longer at Shepherd Public School in Kitchener, and parents who say they can't get a straight answer from the school board. We're talking about that next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
This is where today's topics turn into today's talking points. It's local and it's Democratic radio at its finest. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
Well, many staff appreciated the dogs. Some have expressed they are pleased that they are no longer there, as it took two very important staff members away from supporting students to care for the dogs. The principal has not heard from any staff that they are missing the dogs as a necessary tool for student well-being and success. They miss the dogs because they like dogs.
The Mike Farwell Show continues
on 570 News Radio.
That is Waterloo Region District School Board Superintendent Jay Fedosoff, who says they miss the dogs because they like dogs. But we were losing, essentially, two full-time staff people to care for the dogs during the day. And there was not the data to support the continued presence of the facility dogs, Kesa and Nacho, at Shepherd Public School in Kitchener. Rochelle Barber joins the program. Rochelle is the Director of Operations with National Service Dogs and also a member of the Parent Council at Shepherd Public School in Kitchener. Rochelle, good morning.
Good morning.
I know that you and other parents delegated to the Public School Board this past Monday night. How did you feel your presentations were received?
We felt overall by the trustees it was well received. They referred us even to, or the topic to their policy committee to review, which is lovely. I think it's very appropriate that the facility dogs specifically have a policy that pertains to them outside of a service dog policy. So we're happy to move forward. They asked really good questions. The piece that disappointed us was the inability to respond to Mr. Fedosoff's comments about the service dog program, because there was a lot of inaccuracies that we couldn't respond to.
What were those inaccuracies that you heard?
Many of it was about the transparency and the timeline of things. So parents weren't informed through school day at all, which is the form of contact that the school uses to directly connect with parents of that specific school. So that was never done. The only communication about service dogs or facility dogs with the school board was a website post that went up, I believe it was at 6:36 Monday night as we were starting to enter the building to present our delegation, which was really unfortunate. And again, it wasn't directed towards that specific school community. And the timeline that Parent Council was informed and how they are informed were also not correct, and especially the information about not collecting data. The stipulation for the dogs returning to school in 2020 was that we had to collect data. The principal and National Service Dogs worked together we had a chart that was filled out weekly to show what types of interventions were being used and how often, because we needed to track that data. So I don't quite understand why they're saying there isn't data, and the board didn't reach out to National Service Dogs at any point through this process to request the data that we had been collecting, which I think is unfortunate.
So it was incumbent on the board then to, like, the data wasn't automatically shared. How did that piece get missed?
That is a lovely question. The current principal isn't there anymore, but my understanding was the request was made of her to track the data. If the data was such an ongoing issue that the board needed to know, we had it available. It was sent to me directly, so I know that it was there. I'm not sure why they didn't then ask or have their research department participate in that collection also.
What does that data tell you, Rochelle?
It tells me that dogs were very, very busy. They did interventions almost all day long. Some of it was easier than others, doing reading groups, but there's, at least 5 interventions for dysregulation and behavior concerns. There's, a couple of days where there's over 8, instances where the dog was used for anxiety and stress. So the dogs were very, very busy and utilized really, really well. And they also didn't take away from the 2 important roles. So the dogs were used with the social worker and the CERT. The dogs were used with them, working with the children, not taking away. The only thing that needed to be built into the day, which the handlers did a break, was a bio break for the dog. Outside of that, the dogs didn't remove them from any type of programming or any other work outside of that.
So at this point, it seems to me that the school and the school board is set in this decision. Are you comfortable with the dogs no longer being at the school, or do you believe that with increased advocacy or continued advocacy, you can have the dogs returned to the school? What's next?
I'm not sure what's next. I feel the parents are still quite passionate about having the dogs return. It's hard to run a program when you don't have the support of the school or the school board. My hope would be the school board would see the impact of this program, and it requires minimal, use of staff. It doesn't cost anything, and it has an exponential impact on their community. I don't see, the return on investment is huge. The investment is essentially nothing for a huge impact.
Do you know why this program changed? I'm wondering if it has to do with the original principal who was there when it was established having moved on.
I would assume it was, she brought this project into effect and ran it successfully for 5 years. She ended up retiring in June, and I guess through the new principal coming in, I'm not sure what their decision-making process was. I wasn't party to any of that about the program. So I can't really speak to why it ended with her when everything was set up to continue as is.
And we heard Superintendent Fedosoff say in the clip we played just as we were starting this conversation, Rochelle, that there has been no need for an intervention from a facility dog in the 2 months of the school year so far. So does that tell you anything about whether or not the dogs are still needed at the school?
It only tells me that the resource isn't there, so why are people not accessing it? You can't access something that doesn't exist. So, of course, people aren't using that resource. Teachers aren't sending kids to have that type of support or use that type of support in their programming because they already know it's not there, not available. So why would they, have it?
Yeah. Where are the dogs now?
They are with their home handlers currently, just waiting on a decision. And they'll keep waiting until we get the firm and final either way.
So you're still awaiting that firm and final decision from the school board as to whether or not Kesa and Nacho can go back to the school?
We're hoping they will amend their decision. Right now, they won't be returning. We're hoping they will reverse that decision, especially with the conversation with the trustees on Monday continuing in the policy review. So we'll just wait and see if that happens.
Is there a timeline for that?
I haven't heard about the timeline yet for the policy review. We're interested about it. There's a potential for either the parent delegates or NSD to support any questions about policy, which will be really, really lovely.
Rochelle, I appreciate you making time on the show this morning. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for letting us share this story again. I appreciate it.
Happy to do so. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Rochelle Barber is the Director of Operations with National Service Dogs. She's also on that parent council at Shepherd Public School. The council, parents, the school community taken by surprise at the beginning of this school year when the facility dogs, who had been at Shepherd Public School for 4 years, were suddenly not there anymore. And the decision came rather quietly. It was communicated poorly. And now, not only have parents been trying to get answers, but they don't feel as though statements made at a board meeting this week were accurate. What I come back to is something I mentioned yesterday and will again here. And now that I know that the data existed, and I guess the school board never even sought to review it or have it sent to them, I find that very confusing. But even irrespective of that, the school board's position was that there was no data to support the effectiveness of these facility dogs. Therefore, we're going to discontinue it. I would push back the other side of that coin then. Well, if there's no data to say that the dogs weren't working, why are you taking them out? Like, why don't you just make it, for the next 6 months, we need the data, and then we'll make our decision. You're using the absence of data, which Rochelle just told us did exist, but okay. So the board says there was no data, therefore the dogs are being removed. Well, how about there was no data, therefore the dogs can stay because there's no harm proven? I don't know. And I come at this, admittedly, as a dog lover. I think dogs make every day and every minute of every day better. I can only think that a school is a better place when a facility dog is a part of it. But that's me. Your thoughts always welcome on the program. 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Facility dogs, yay or nay in our schools. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
It's hard to run a program when you don't have the support of the school or the school board. My hope would be the school board would see the impact of this program, and it requires minimal use of staff. It doesn't cost anything, and it has an exponential impact on their community. The return on investment is huge. The investment is essentially nothing for a huge impact.
Rochelle Barber is the Director of Operations with National Service Dogs. She's also a member of the Parent Council at Shepherd Public School, which until this September had a couple of facility dogs in the building. For 4 years, the dogs were there, and then quietly and with very poor communication, the dogs disappeared. Parents have been asking questions ever since and are not entirely satisfied with the answers they've been given. Let's go to the phones and hear from you on this. Ibrahim, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. I know you love dogs, but my take on this, Mike, we shouldn't have any dog in the school, anywhere really in the city. City meant to be for...
No dogs in the city at all?
City, why we have to have so many dogs, Mike? Now, soon, I see the people, 3 dogs. They talk to the dogs like a human being. Man, why we have to? But sooner will be more maybe the dogs than population in the city. So why we have so many dogs? Only circumstance.
Well, we have dogs because they're awesome, Ibrahim. That's why.
What do you mean? You have to ask them. Why you don't talk to human, Mike?
I do talk to. I'm talking to you right now. I talk to humans all the time.
No, okay, that's I see.
But I want to talk to dogs too. I love dogs.
Okay.
Yeah.
You love dogs. Okay, if you live in rural area, it's okay, Mike. The city meant to be for people, cars, manufacturing, not for the dog.
No, come on, Ibrahim.
Yes, should allow only for service dog or some like a child.
Why? Why do you say that?
Why? But why we need a dog, Mike? Every time you take out your dog, Mike, poisoning environment, urinate everywhere. That urination poisoning our air.
It's not poison. No, it's not. Ibrahim, come on.
Yes.
No.
But that's my opinion. You say that.
Okay. You're
Okay. Let me see. I came from farming family. Okay, outside. So farming always outside of area. So outside is a small town. Then that dog for purpose was they're guarding the cows and sheep and goats. We have here my father inherited from my grandfather. So that dog was guarding from the hyenas or fox or going around to looking. Other than that, you don't need a dog unless service dog. That's it.
All right. Ibrahim, listen, I appreciate, we are entitled to our opinions for sure, but it's not fact-based. There's no poison or pollution being put into the air because of dog urine or dog poop. That's not actually true. So maybe you don't like dogs and therefore you don't want them in the city, and that's okay. But you can't base this on things that are not factual here. Opinion's one thing, but you have to have it rooted in some sort of reality. And I'm afraid, sir, yours is not rooted in reality. There's no poison, there's no pollution. And I know people don't always pick up after their dogs and things like that, and it can be frustrating, but the dogs are not hurting anything. They're not doing any permanent damage to our environment here. A break and back with more of your calls on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Back to the phones to talk about the facility dogs no longer at Shepherd Public School in Kitchener. George is with us. Good morning, George.
Yes, good morning, Mike. One small mistake you made, Mike, when you were talking to Ibrahim, it's not his opinion. It's an actual Muslim teaching. Dogs are dirty, unclean animals. So, of course, he's going to believe that. But like you, they are man's best friend. They are worthy to have around. And also, get this, they were created by God. Thank you, Mike.
George, interesting points. Listen, I will add to that, if I may be so crass, as a born and raised, now mediocre Catholic, I was also taught about this thing called the Immaculate Conception and the resurrection. And I could go on, but I won't go any further. I must not. I'm not trying to mock anybody's faith, believe you me. But I think we do have to consider facts in our stories and in our opinions, perhaps. But I guess now I know better where it's shaped. Mary, hi. I'm getting myself in trouble. I'll just talk to you.
Yeah. Good. Oh, my, what a rant that was from Ibrahim. I couldn't believe my ears.
Well, that's okay. He's entitled to have his...
He has his opinion, but it took too long, and I lost the idea of what I was going to say, but I still remember some of it.
Okay, I got 40 seconds.
It is that I love dogs. Dogs are man's best friend. These service dogs do a wonderful job with calming down the kids, and the board should remember they are elected by the people to serve the people. There's no excuse for ignorance. Thank you.
All right, Mary. Appreciate the call. I said yesterday, and we'll probably just add here, I just get this sense that with our public school board today, it does what it wants to do. The school board does what school board wants to do. Don't think it cares much for what we think about it, to be honest with you. An update from the 570 News Center is coming up, and then Gary Chalk, who writes the humor column Living Retired, is on the hot seat. Literally. You'll understand more when we talk to Gary, coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Hookah chaka, hookah, hookah, hookah chaka, hookah, hookah, hookah chaka, hookah, hookah, hookah chaka, hookah, hookah. I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me. Girl, you just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's alright. I'm hooked on a feeling.
Here we are, Thursday morning. We get hooked on the feeling of laughter. Gary Chalk writes the humor column Living Retired. You can find it online, by the way, at livingretired.press. And then while you're there, make sure you do what I did and sign up for the newsletter. Weekly, the Living Retired column will show up right in your inbox, and you can start your week with a chuckle on Mondays. Gary joins us on the show every Thursday morning at 10:30. Mr. Chalk, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Mike with a mic. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And you?
Good. Well, I'm better today. I was sort of depressed yesterday. I got up in the morning, always turn on your station listening to the All News Mornings, and you had a report there that People magazine awarded their 2024 Sexiest Man Alive. And I understand that, but does that mean they have a 2024 Sexiest Man Dead award? I mean, come on.
I thought you, like another friend of mine who sent me a message early yesterday morning, were disappointed that once again you were passed over for the title, Gary.
Well, that's it. And the first thing I thought, gee whiz, Mike probably feels really bad as well. So I went online, and there's nothing there. However, there is another award, and I was a finalist. And it was for the 2024 Man That Most Resembles Willie Nelson. And
you know what? It's not far off. Your hair's a little short, but mostly you're there. You're there. Gary, I mentioned a moment ago that I'm encouraging people to do like I've done when they go to livingretired.press, sign up to have the Living Retired column delivered right to their inbox so they can start their week with a chuckle when it shows up on Monday mornings. And I did, but I was getting nervous this week as I started reading about you on the hot seat, because you literally meant that you were on a hot seat.
I was.
Yeah.
It all started, Jan and I took a road trip. We were going to southern Maine, Portland, Kennebunkport. We've been going there for years. And friends suggested, why don't you make a stop halfway through in Saratoga Springs, which is in New York, Saratoga Springs in New York. And so we checked into this nice hotel. I tell you, it was a swanky hotel. They swiped my credit card and then handed us 2 free glasses of Prosecco. I mean, never gets any better than that.
No, it's a great start to a trip, for sure.
Sure. So Mike, why don't you ask me, Gary, how swanky was the hotel?
Hey, Gary, how swanky was it?
Well, I'll tell you. What happened was they got off the elevator, and, Jan and I look like pack mules. We got luggage and backpacks and purses and things, and we're holding a glass filled with Prosecco. What can possibly go wrong? The door opened. Thank heavens nobody was getting on the elevator, because I spilled it all down my shirt. So we got to the room, and, of course, when you're living retired, you hoist the luggage up in the bed. Then I checked the amenities, and this is where I found how swanky it was. A king-size bed, a very, very well-stocked minibar, of course, a big screen television for me. And for Jan, in the bathroom, they had one of those wall-mounted makeup mirrors, those things you swing out and they magnify your wrinkles to the size of craters.
I try to avoid those at all costs when I see them in a room.
Never figured that out.
Yeah.
Yep. This place was so swanky, it also had a large soaking tub and a separate shower. And I'm thinking, the life of living retired. But, Mike, there's always a but. And the but is this one.
Okay.
I peered into the toilet, rolled back the doors, one of those barn-style doors they roll on, and it wasn't a toilet. The only way to describe it, Mike, was a very, very sophisticated toilet system.
Wait a minute. A toilet system?
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't just a toilet. It was a toilet system. I guess the best way to describe it, Mike, is sort of think the Kardashians meet Kohler. This thing... the first thing I did was thought, I'll give it a test run. So I stepped in, slid the door open, and sat in the toilet seat. Yikes! Fast as I sat down in that toilet, Mike, I leapt right back up. The toilet seat was hot. And I mean, Mike, I seared my buns.
You're only supposed to do that on the barbecue and not the buns you're talking about, Chalk.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know whether you've ever seared your buns, but I'm telling you, this toilet seat was hot. So now I'm standing there. My jeans are drooping down at my knees. My hands are grasping my buns. And then I fell on the wall against, get this, a wall-mounted programmable handheld remote control.
Wait. So if there's a remote control in the toilet stall, surely there's a television to watch?
Well, that's what I said. I called out to Jan and over in the bedroom. I said, "Dear, the television remote is here in the bathroom." And she said, "No, Gary, I've already used the remote control here. It's on the nightstand, and I've turned on the television." So I'm thinking, well, that doesn't make sense. So I responded. I said, "No, dear, I'm going to try the remote control here in the bathroom. Tell me if it changes the channels." So right away, I started poking away at all these buttons on the remote. And Jan called out and said, "No, Gary, I'm still watching The Voice." But that's when she said, "Dear, I hear water running in the bathroom. Did you flush the toilet?" Well, remember, I'm standing up because the toilet seat was so darn hot. I looked down at the toilet bowl, Mike. This is when I realized there was a fine mist shooting up from the toilet bowl.
Oh my gosh.
It sort of looked like when you're on the Maid of the Mist in Niagara Falls. So I'm standing there because, as I said, the seat is too hot to sit on. My pants now are drooped at my ankles. I'm staring at this remote control. It had more features than the remote on our smart television. This was for a toilet. So Mike asked me, what about those features? What were they on that remote?
I want to know more about the features. I've never in my life heard about a remote-controlled toilet, Gary.
Well, first of all, the features on the remote control were depicted like those IKEA manuals. It was with stick people. There wasn't an Allen wrench, but the options included a rear setting or a front setting with what looked to be like water spraying towards their stick bums. And then you could select either pulsating or oscillating water spray. You could increase the pressure. I'm not intelligent enough to dream this stuff up, Mike. There was also a dryer feature. So when I saw the dryer feature, I thought, oh my gosh, maybe there's not toilet paper here. Maybe this is a new way. Then I turned the remote over, and it had another array of options. You could press 1 for cleaning. I guess that was the toilet. 2, energy saver. And 3, auto functions. And 4, select. And then, Mike, there's more. On top of the toilet tank, there was a power switch, a seat button, and a water button.
Gary, I know that when we reach a certain age, we have various meds that we may need to take for various ailments. Are you sure that you didn't mix your meds and was this really happening?
Mike, believe me, I even thought maybe when I hit the wall, when I fell over my drooping pants, maybe I'd sort of concussed myself or something.
Exactly. No disrespect, friend, but that's what I'm starting to worry about here.
Well, my concern was, boy, now does this mean I'm going to have to start wearing my hockey helmet when I go to the toilet? This is not a pretty picture, Mike. So I looked at all these choices, the menu options. Mike, there were more choices on this remote control, programmable thing for the toilet, more options than at a Chinese food buffet.
Okay. We need to get to the bottom, pun intended, of this. Hang on, Gary Chalk, hang on. It's the remote-controlled toilet that literally put our living retired author on the hot seat. Stay with us. It's the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Thursday morning at 10:30, our good friend Gary Chalk, who writes the humor column Living Retired, joins us on the show to bring that column to life. Gary, you were talking about the road trip that you and Jan took and the swanky hotel that you stayed in that included a wall-mounted, handheld, programmable toilet remote control with more options than a Chinese buffet. Now, I'm thinking to myself, maybe you can use this thing to order in some Chinese, and if you order the right thing, you could just stay right there on the toilet. I don't know. But what did you do?
I think you could probably, or I couldn't figure it out. In fact, I'm sure if I pressed a few buttons, it would have changed the snow tires in Jan's car back home. It was that complicated. Anyways, so what I do, Jan's still in the bedroom. I'm in this toilet area there, and I called and I said, Jan, I'm going to program the toilet remote. I'll assign you as user 1. I will be user 2, because you can set this up that way. Maybe when you're living retired, your hearing goes. And she said, Gary, did you say something about going number 2 in the bathroom? And she said, that's way too much information. I said, no, I am going to be user 2 for the toilet. You will be user 1, and we'll both then have our own settings. And I didn't know, quite honestly, whether I was speaking there, whether it would be our own settings or our own seatings. But anyways, I moved on. So I'm intrigued by this thing. So I started fiddling with all the buttons. I pressed every which one, not paying, because nothing I could see was happening. The mist, I don't know what was going on. Nothing happened until later that night. Mike, ask me what happened later that night.
Gary, what did happen later that night?
Yeah, well, we were watching television, laying on the bed there, and I got up to go to the bathroom. And I'm in this swanky bathroom, and Jan called out. She said, Gary, what's going on? The channels and the television are changing. She said, I've been watching Only Murders in the Building, and now all of a sudden The Bachelor came on. And I called over and said, dear, I'm just going to the bathroom. I'm trying to use the programmable remote control. And then she said, Gary, now it's Grey's Anatomy. I swear I haven't touched a thing out here. Mike, that's when it dawned on to me. I had not the toilet remote in my hand, but a television remote.
That'll teach you to try to use a toilet remote, Gary.
Here I was thinking I was flushing the toilet, and with the TV remote, I'm changing the channels on the television. Now she's watching The Voice, Only Murders in the Building, and she's upset, and it's Grey's Anatomy. I said, well, dear, it could be worse. It could be Game of Thrones.
Well played, sir. Well played.
Oh, I tell you, it was a swanky hotel. They had a well-stocked bar. They had soft drinks, bottled water, energy drinks, a couple of bottles of beer, a couple of bottles of wine. And I'm not lying. This note said, the first round is on us free. You ever seen that in a mini bar in your room? They usually charge you exorbitant prices. They said it's free.
I don't even open the door to the mini bar just in case that costs me.
Well, sometimes I get so anxious. Some of them have a little seal you have to break.
Right.
And I've tried to figure out as a way that I can glue that seal back together, but that never works. So when we checked out, I had soft drinks, bottled water, energy drinks, 2 bottles of beer, a couple small bottles of wine, and then that went along with the usual, the green tea moisturizing shampoo, green tea extra strength conditioner. I had a shower cap, a small sewing kit. I even picked up the small shoe shine kit. It was a good haul at checkout.
You got to make it worth your while.
Well, when you're in and they encourage you to take things, I sort of kept looking at the duvet and thinking, well, it's a little bulky, but so we left that. But no, this hotel had actually an in-room coffee maker that worked. You ever gotten those things to work?
Eventually, I think would be the way I describe it.
Yeah, that would be it. You open up the lid on the top, you insert the pod, and then you press brew. That's when I realized, oops, I forgot to fill the container with water.
Yep.
So I do that, then I put it all back and I press start, and I either end up with coffee flowing right down onto the carpet, or I end up with a little, maybe half an ounce of coffee in the bottom of the cup. It never works. Then I got to open up that little packet for sugar and cream and a stir stick. There's more packaging in there, Mike, than there is contents.
Maybe, Gary, it's just time to go back to your early marriage roots and go camping because we couldn't afford hotels.
Oh, my gosh. Mike, don't go there.
Okay.
Don't go there.
I'll save that for another episode, my friend.
Oh, please do that.
Always good to chat with you. Thanks for being here again this morning.
And go Rangers.
Go Rangers. Gary Chalk is the author of Living Retired. It's a humor column that you can find online, livingretired.press, and every Thursday morning at 10:30. I've never heard of a remote-controlled toilet before in my life. It's the sort of thing you can only learn from listening to Gary Chalk on our show every Thursday morning at 10:30. You can sign up to have the column delivered directly to your inbox when you visit livingretired.press And then you two could have read earlier this week about Gary being on the hot seat, literally. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is Taylor Swift Day here in Ontario. The first of 6 sold-out shows tonight in Toronto. If you're already on your way there, good idea, because one never knows what they're going to encounter traffic-wise between here and Toronto. The 401 was a great idea in theory. I think we've kind of shot that theory all to heck. In about 30 minutes' time, Thursday mornings, 11:30, we do a little thing called the Flipside, where we can take a break from the heavier stuff, have a little bit of fun. So in light of the big concert and some of the prices that we are hearing for tickets, especially if you're trying to get something last minute, we're into the many thousands of dollars. What we'll talk about on the Flipside today is the most expensive concert ticket you ever purchased. And if that concert ticket just so happens to be a Taylor Swift ticket, bonus points for you. That's the Flipside coming up at 11:30 this morning. Of course, between noon and 1, we will have open phone lines where you get to call in, share thoughts on an issue that we discussed on the show today, or anything else that happens to be on your mind. It's an open line hour devoted exclusively to you from 12 until 1. Right now, I have to get you to the 570 News Center for your 11 a.m. update. And then a story that I remember talking to this group about decades ago. Like, this story goes back a long way. And I think we could accurately say that David has slain Goliath in this case, just outside of Guelph. The story coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Over the next few months, operations will wind down so that by the end of January 2025, a water bottling plant in Wellington County will be no longer. Aberfoyle is the place. Nestle was, for the longest time, the bottler in question. Then they sold off to Blue Triton. And as things go, now it's going to be, the operations will be relocated into the United States, closer to head office for the parent company. And a local advocacy group is claiming victory in this regard. Hard to argue with them on that score for sure. Danny Lindemood is the program's director with Wellington Water Watchers and joins us to talk about it. Danny, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me back this morning.
It's great to chat with you about this. I mentioned before that news update with Matt that I remember this story, Danny, going back so many years to my time as a reporter at this radio station, hearing from folks with your advocacy group saying, you know, this practice isn't right and the groundwater should be protected and a variety of different things. And here we are all these years later. Has David slain Goliath here, Danny?
Well, that's the big question. We have a lot of unanswered questions. We're celebrating at this moment this milestone victory for water justice, and we're preparing for the next chapter in the story. We defeated Nestle, sent them running from North America in 2021. Now we're seeing Blue Triton's exit, but we never want to see this site used for profiteering off water again. And we're working with partners at Six Nations to define those next steps. But ultimately, we want the site to be returned to public and Indigenous stewardship, and we won't stop until we get that.
So is it possible then, if I'm reading between the lines of what you're saying, that another company may come in and make use of this site for profiteering purposes?
So what we know at this moment is that Blue Triton is initiating a public sale process for their water bottling sites in Ontario. So that we also know that they privately tried to sell their sites already to other water bottling companies and failed to do so. So at this moment, it's unclear if another industry might scoop it up, if we can work to get some sort of purchase for use of that water to supply Six Nations with clean drinking water, where a huge percentage of the population still doesn't have access to their human right to clean drinking water. So while we don't know exactly what the playing field is going to bring in the future, we have our sights set on making sure that corporate profiteering does not happen here, and that the permits to take water that are issued by the province are not transferred to whoever comes in next automatically.
There had been a moratorium on those permits for a time, had there not been?
Yeah, there was a moratorium on new permits to take water that lasted, there was 9 years leading up to this, where those permits were on hold. The government did a review of policy. We had tens of thousands of people submit comments against issuing permits for bottled water, and still the government of Ontario moved forward with proposals for us continuing to issue these permits. That's still part of this fight too. We want to see an end to permits to bottle water in Ontario.
You mentioned earlier that Nestle was sent running from North America. Blue Triton tried unsuccessfully to sell its operation. Has there been a shift in our approach to bottled water? Has the industry dramatically changed, Danny, in your time working and advocating against it?
So I think the big narrative that I would focus on around that is this idea that public consciousness around bottled water is shifting. So years ago, we did a public survey, and 90% of people in Ontario said that they were against bottled water. That percentage has only continued to grow, and people have showed up in advocacy actions against the industry as well. So while the practices of the industry itself might not be shifting, the public outcry against the injustice of profiteering off of water, which should be supporting the human right to water, not being sold back to Six Nations, for instance. And this idea that people are showing up in the advocacy actions to sunset this industry. That's really the playing field that's shifting.
Where do you direct your advocacy efforts now?
Well, I want to make sure that we get to say that our hearts are going out to the workers through this moment. I have personal connections that work for Blue Triton, so it's not a false sympathy. We've always called for a just transition for workers in the bottled water industry. So that is one of our top demands, is fair compensation for the employees as Blue Triton exits, and hopefully further employment opportunities for them in other industries. We want the return of the well as well to ownership that is local and Indigenous informed. We want compensation for Six Nations of the Grand River, whose treaty territories Nestle and Blue Triton have been extracting water from without consent for 20 plus years. We want the province of Ontario to phase out permits for water bottling, and we want the legal recognition of the human right to water in Canada. Right now, there's no legal framework for the human right to water. That's why we see it's such an access issue for so many people, especially Indigenous people and people living in housing precarity or unhoused. So those are our kind of 5 big demands as we move into this next chapter.
Danny, I appreciate your time on the show this morning. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if people want to follow along with the fight, you can check us out at waterwatchers.ca or follow us on Instagram at Wellington Waterwatchers.
Waterwatchers.ca, Instagram at Wellington Waterwatchers. We'll point people in that direction. Danny, thank you again.
Thank you again.
Bye-bye. Danny Lindemood is a programs director with Water Watchers. And I'm glad she acknowledged those. It's almost 150 workers who will be losing jobs when Blue Triton exits Aberfoyle. There is always that double-edged sword, isn't there? I, for one, though, have long been fascinated by the bottled water industry. It is a perfect example of capitalism / consumerism convincing us that we needed something we absolutely did not need. The stuff that comes out of our taps around here is absolutely pristine. So to have somebody take it and from the ground, basically in our own backyard, no less, and put it into a bottle and sell it back to us at a massive profit, it just blows my mind. It blows my mind. But we got it into our heads that we needed to buy this stuff in bottles at our convenience, and it was somehow purer or whatever the case may be. Not the case at all, in fact. And after more than a decade, well more than a decade, Nestle / Blue Triton gone from Wellington County. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. As you know, the city of Cambridge cleared out an encampment on Dundas Street North this week. Better known in the city as Shantytown. City of Guelph did the same thing at St. George's Square. Cambridge, at its council meeting last week, discussed the province's offer to make use of the notwithstanding clause in order to have encampments cleared, to give municipalities more power. As it turns out, you watch what happened yesterday or this week in Cambridge and Guelph. They don't need the province's support to do this. And so off they went and did it. As I mentioned, this was talked about at Cambridge Council last week, how the city was going to approach encampments. And some talked about how it had been a heated meeting or debate. I wouldn't call it that. There were definitely different opinions, but I wanted to share with you, just especially now that we see the encampments being cleared out, the conversations that brought us to this point, particularly at Cambridge Council, where the conversation happened last week. So one of the folks who delegated in support of the unsheltered and unhoused was a woman by the name of Robin Schwartz.
4 times the number of men who want help, who want to get sober, who want to rebuild their lives, than there are spots in the program this year. They are waiting and they cannot get help because the provincial government is not investing and giving us the resources we need for this problem. Additionally, it is crucial to recognize that homelessness is not solely the consequence of addiction. It's complicated, and if we look at our federal and provincial government's investment trajectories, we can trace this back to the 1990s when significant resources were taken out of our municipal governments by both the federal government and the provincial government, led by different political parties. This is a nonpartisan issue and 30 years of policy failure that this motion is not going to fix. Involuntary treatment is a human rights violation, full stop. Our legal frameworks were put in place to protect vulnerable populations. That's why the laws exist. Instead of...
I don't know why that got cut off like that. My apologies. But nonetheless, involuntary treatment and protecting vulnerable populations from having folks moved involuntarily into that treatment, or having folks moved along from their tent when they have no other place to go, which has begun to happen. Ward 5's Sherry Roberts in Cambridge had this to say.
We have heard from the experts speaking out against the use of involuntary treatment. We've heard it's not an effective strategy, that it can lead to more problems. And we just have to look in our history. There was a disturbing history of forced treatment on people with disabilities for a long time. And this was shown to be nothing but negative. So, while I do support a lot of what's in here, and I think that there's lots of good intentions here, this one piece is really problematic for me, and because of that, and I'm concerned about the precedent that it may set, I won't be able to support this motion.
And this gets to the heart of really what we're dealing with here in cities across this province and really across the country. There are things within the motion that Councillor Roberts could support, but she can't go so far as to say involuntary treatment is the way to go. Ward 6's Adam Cooper in Cambridge felt differently.
The residents of this city have rights too, and this motion supports giving us the necessary legal authority to act immediately and effectively when public safety is at risk. So people in our communities, they have a right to be protected from the victimization that we know comes from a lot of these encampments. And as far as the treatment, it can take many attempts to get a user clean. That's not news to anybody, whether that treatment be voluntary or not. But you can guarantee no success whatsoever when you don't even try. When you continue with a system that makes little to no attempt to remove addiction. I don't believe in just sitting back and doing nothing. I don't believe there is any compassion in minimizing the lives of addiction sufferers to lost causes whose pain and daily poisoning is something that should just be managed and maintained in a sad cycle that often leads to an inevitable end because everyone's too scared to actually intervene and do what needs to be done.
Councillor Adam Cooper in Cambridge, painting it in such a way as, if not involuntary treatment, or involuntary treatment is certainly superior to no treatment at all, which is what he believes we're seeing when we see people in the throes of addiction on our streets. Ward 7's Scott Hamilton in Cambridge can't see his way clear to support involuntary treatment.
Every time we've seen politicians in the history of our country remove the rights of vulnerable groups, years later, that's been a huge mistake. And I feel like that's what we'd be doing here. If we remove the fundamental rights of a vulnerable population in a political decision, I think that's an extremely slippery slope for us to get on. And so that's why I think even the motivation of this motion comes from a good place from the big city mayors. We are not experts, legally or medically, and I do not feel comfortable removing the rights of any of our citizens, housed or not, because I think that's a slippery slope that no city should get on.
The old slippery slope, and the intentions may be noble within the motion, but not a place that the city should go. And finally, Mayor Jan Liggett, who spoke passionately about her own lived experience with this.
This wasn't done by just politicians. These are professional people, many of them around that horseshoe. I supported it then. I had a part in putting it together, not as much as many of the others. But I was determined when I became mayor that I was going to make a difference in this community. I was not going to let this continue or grow any further than it has. I have addicts in my family. I have taken homeless into my home. So before anybody says, walk them out in their shoes, I've done that. I have that lived experience. I know what it's like for these people. I know what it's like to care about them and love them and want to make a difference. And there are those around the horseshoe who have been in that same place and are in that place right now, today.
That was the conversation at Cambridge City Council around how best to deal with encampments, and particularly those living within them who may be suffering from addiction as well. Again, it's been characterized in some corners as a heated debate. I thought it was quite civil. Obviously, you hear some different viewpoints on the issue, but and council did ultimately move forward with its motion, and this week began clearing the encampment on Dundas Street. But I wouldn't characterize that personally as heated in any way. I'll tell you what, though, a very similar conversation in nearby Hamilton I would describe as a little bit more heated, even though some of the things that were said were no different than what you just heard. And yet it led to the expulsion of a member of Hamilton City Council for the remainder of their meeting earlier this week. I'll play that for you in our Talkback Hour between noon and 1 today. I find it interesting, if not enlightening. That's still to come on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I just checked Ticketmaster, which said it was sold out, but StubHub will get you into the Taylor Swift concert in Toronto tonight for anywhere from $2,000 to $7,000 per seat. The flip side is coming up right after this update from the 570 News Center. What is the most you have ever spent on a ticket to a concert or sporting event or some other kind of event? The most, is it $2,000? Is it $7,000? Is it more? How much would you spend anyway? The flip side is coming up. We want your answer to those questions. Come on, we're getting into your finances today. What's the most you've ever spent to attend a concert or other event? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It feels impossible to avoid Taylor Swift today. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. That's just the reality as she plays her first of 6 sold-out shows in Toronto tonight at the Rogers Centre. Tickets right now, I just checked StubHub. Ticketmaster said they were sold out. But StubHub will get you in there if you'll be willing to part with $2,019 per seat or $7,011 per seat. Yowza. That's a whole lot of money. And I've been watching all the stories and listening to all the excited fans, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, one couple I saw yesterday spent almost $800 just buying merch, and they were from down east. So I'm just trying to piece it all together, right? $800 on merch, whatever it cost to get to Toronto, whatever the ticket cost. But maybe that's your vacation for the year. Like, good on you. And I'm a big supporter of the arts, music, performance, whatever it happens to be, sports too. So it just got me thinking. I mean, $2,000. That's the low end of what's available right now. What's the most you have ever spent on a concert ticket or a ticket to any other event? Could be a sporting event, whatever it happens to be. To get into a museum, I don't know. What's the most that you have ever spent? That's what we're talking about on the flip side today. Remembering that I am as cheap as the day is long. Many, many years ago, I spent $225 US on a football ticket in San Francisco. That was hard for me. I'm like, wow, I'm going to sit down for 4 hours, $225 US. And then just last year when we went to see Springsteen in Buffalo, it was about $250 Canadian. So I spent more on that football ticket all those years ago. But that's it. That's as high as I've gone is $250 Canuck bucks to see a concert. So you tell me, what's the most you've ever spent? 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. And bonus points if what you spent is what you're spending on Taylor Swift tonight. If you're going to that show, I want to hear about that too. Let's go to the phones on the flip side. Kyle, good morning.
Good morning. Well, the most I've ever spent, now I don't have the total because each day is different, but it was Formula One. It was like $500 to $600 just for race day alone, so that's on a Sunday. It's $450 for qualifying on a Saturday. It was like $120 on a Friday just to watch practice. But the other thing you have to remember is at the hotels in downtown Montreal, they get you because they know it's a Grand Prix weekend. So instead of staying like a Friday to a Sunday after race day, you come back home, they make you stay the extra day, and they make you check out on a Monday. And by the time you do that, you're spending just about $9,000 to $10,000 by the time you do that.
Whoa, wait, 9 to 10,000?
Yeah, the hotel for the weekend, you're looking about $4,000 to $5,000.
That's incredible and insane.
Yep, and my dad's been doing it since 1982.
Wow.
So there you go.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not like him about that.
You're not getting an inheritance, I guess.
I mean, hey, he's got to live his life to the extreme too, you know. So I'm not complaining if he likes to enjoy it, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, but yeah, there you go. So that's the most I've spent on a Grand Prix weekend.
You've spent up to $10,000 on a weekend.
And that's not including merchandise, beer, or anything like that. That is just hotel and tickets for Formula One weekend. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you very much, my friend. And you know what? Like, I'm happy for you. Like Kyle said, if his dad's doing it and has been doing it since the 80s, like, if that's what fills your bucket, I'm all for it. Do it. I look at that, though, and I'm like, man, like, that's Europe, right? You can go to Montreal for a race one weekend, or spend a week, 10 days traveling across Europe, maybe more. Neil, good morning.
Good morning. It's funny. I'm phoning about the same thing. I've spent a fair bit of coin on F1 tickets in Montreal. Been a few years now. Honestly, I don't know if I'd do that again. I would look at going to Europe instead, because you can fly to Italy, go to Imola, and actually get hotel accommodation much cheaper. Montreal, it's the most expensive weekend to be in Montreal. It's ridiculous.
Right.
And it's just, I enjoyed it, but as it's gotten more popular in North America, the price is just going through the roof every year. And you've got all these bots buying up all your tickets. I mean, I was lucky enough the last time that I bought my tickets through a European secondary site.
F1 though, eh? Like, that's your jam, huh?
Yeah, off and on since I was a kid, and kind of got reinvigorated a number of years ago, and I've got the whole family on board. So we did like a, one of my daughters, but mostly the guys and boyfriends and son-in-laws, that kind of thing, and we have a great time. It was 3 days. It's a great trip, and Montreal's a great city. But I think next time I'd rather check out something on the European circuit.
Good idea. Neil, appreciate the call.
Yep.
I love it. You know what? Because, again, the whole family's getting involved. It's a great experience. Montreal is a great city. Like, I will not talk about the team that shall not be named, but I will not badmouth that city. I've loved every trip I've ever taken to the city, and I've actually gone for one of those games. But I only went to cheer against them, trust me. Anyway, interesting what Neil says about he would go to Italy and pay the airfare and go to the event there, because I read something similar today or yesterday about Taylor Swift. Same thing. When you look at a couple of things, one, the price of the tickets here, and two, you heard Neil make reference to those bots that are just driving ticket prices up through our various sites that sell the tickets, right? But they said you could go to Europe where the prices are more reasonable ticket-wise, and even after you take into account the airfare and the accommodations, you're doing better, probably, on the bottom line than you are when you go to see her shows in North America. Go figure. So you travel to Europe to see Taylor Swift, and you spend less than some people are spending for their night in Toronto. Rob, good morning.
How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Not bad. I'm going to go I'm going the other direction here. How about the cheapest ever spent?
All right, let's hear it.
Okay, buddy. July 4th, 1978. Rich Stadium, Rolling Stones, Journey, Atlanta Rhythm Section, and George Thorogood. $12.50.
Now, and you're not talking $1,250. You're talking $12.50.
I'm looking at the ticket as we speak.
That's amazing. You've got the ticket stub still?
I got it. I got 1981. We went again to Rich Stadium, me and my buddy. Oh, I took the wife this time. $15.81.
Rob, you're my kind of guy. Not only are you holding on to those ticket stubs, but you're proudly saying that you saw this, that, and the other thing for under $16.
And that $15, that was the same. It was the same lineup, the same four bands.
Amazing.
And you say you're cheap, buddy. You ain't cheap till you met me, dude.
Rob, I love it. Keep being cheap, buddy.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for the call. You too. I absolutely love that. And I am cheap, by the way. I was waiting for somebody to tell me the $4 ticket they got to see Rush when they were in Kitchener, decades ago. Jody, good morning.
Hi. I can't tell you what the most I've spent on a ticket for. I just want, like, right now, but I just got a good deal last summer. $20 to go to a Blue Jays game. Bus there, bus back, with a hot dog and a pop or a pizza. We had a choice, and I had and it was through Threshold last summer, and it was such an awesome. It was nice to get away.
Absolutely, it would be, and that's a great way to do it. $20, you're there, you're back, you're on the bus. It was a few years ago, I think, but check it out. I mean, if you're a hockey fan at all, junior hockey, Sarnia had a great deal where you'd get the bus trip down there, your ticket, and I believe a slice of pizza and a pop at the game. It was like $25 total. Like that wasn't bad. It might be up now, or I don't know if the offer still exists, but it's a good way to see a sporting event. You get those kind of group discounts when you take those big bus loads in, right? Ernie, most you've ever spent on a concert ticket or a ticket to an event?
So I don't know, this kind of, well, I'm sure it correlates with this, but so the AFC Championship game last year, which was terrible, and we have seasons. So we went to the game, but as a ticket holder, I was able to secure another two that I sold. So I put it this way. I sold one ticket, so two tickets. I sold one for, they each were $1,900 US a piece is what I sold those two tickets for.
Wait. You sold, so you got $3,800 US for your two tickets.
So I was able to secure two other ones as a season ticket holder because I was able to go on the pre-sale, and the face value was $250. But so we went to our seasons, bought those two because I flipped those. And then I'm just like on the way home, my wife and I, and Zach we took our 7-month-old baby too, because we didn't have a sitter. He was too young to leave it with a sitter at the time. But on the way home, such a long drive after that devastating loss with all those Swifties there. Every time I hear Taylor Swift, it just gives me nightmares, right?
Right.
PTSD. But I could have, on the way home, I'm like, babes, we could have gotten $4,000 US for these seats. Instead, we came here. Yeah, you know what? Everyone says you're at an AFC Championship game. Yeah, but Mike, I think I would rather have watched the loss at home than even be there, even though we were like 3 rows from the field.
But if they had won, it would have been a different story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have that story.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, there's my little story about tickets.
All right, Ernie, appreciate the call. That's the thing, right? There is something pretty special. Like these people going to the show tonight in Toronto or any of the next 5, you will say, I remember every concert I've been to. And in fairness, it's not like I've been to hundreds, but I remember them all. U2 at Rogers Centre, all of the Rush shows I've been to, Springsteen in Buffalo last year. I mean, you name it. You love those things. It was a great experience. Asif, what's the most you've ever spent on a ticket?
The most I've spent is $120.
For?
It's a concert for a Pakistani singer, Bilal Saeed.
Really?
Yeah.
And where'd you see them?
It was in Brampton.
Brampton, no kidding. $120, eh?
Yeah, $120.
Okay.
And the seats were like bleeder seats, but oh well.
You were there though. That's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Asif, appreciate the call. 2,000. I'm going to hit refresh. Let's see if it changes. The prices on the Taylor Swift tickets currently, it has changed. They're down. You can now go for $1,900 a seat tonight, up to $6,800. Down from $2,000 to $7,000. Huh? Last minute Larry's and Lucy's are going to get a good deal on Taylor Swift tickets. What's the most you've spent on a ticket to a concert or other event? Let us know. That's our Flipside question this morning on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Attaboy Russell, who sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. Most I spent on a ticket was just under $400 for 2 tickets to Rush's R40 farewell tour. Tough to beat. And that's a great price for the greatest band on earth. Which reminds me of our trip last summer to see Garth Brooks in New Orleans. And listen, I know Taylor Swift is the biggest, hairiest deal in the world, and full respect, but like Garth Brooks is no slouch. And dare I say the track record's a little bit longer. Like mega stars, Garth has got to be up there, doesn't he? Top 5, top 10? Anyway, 79 or 89, one or the other, U.S., but still, heck, I was willing to pay that and go to New Orleans to see him. Why not? Back to the phones. Mark, good morning.
Good morning. Got a number of tickets that I have bought. The most I usually buy, and I get them right off the regular price. But the best one I ever got was $250 for Elton John in Kitchener.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
And the cheapest I've ever had is $5 for the Beatles in 1963.
Get out of town. That's a lie, Mark. Don't call my show and lie to me.
No, and the ones that I do pay over list price because I'm a big is going to the States, and I've paid upwards of $400 for a Notre Dame or a Michigan game. And I was fortunate enough to get list price tickets for $500 at Maple Leaf Gardens for that big overtime win by Larry. No, not Larry. Forget what his name is now. The wraparound against Los Angeles.
Okay, hey, Mark, you're killing me here because I'm a Leafs fan, and Doug Gilmour was my favorite player.
Yeah, Doug Gilmour.
And it was versus St. Louis.
St. Louis, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I was lucky enough that I got 4 tickets for $500 a piece.
Mark, I think you and I should be friends. You got that kind of money for hockey tickets, eh?
You search around.
All right, thanks for the call.
Sometimes you have to have friends too.
Yeah, that's true. That never hurts. Never hurts to have friends in high places. In fact, when you mentioned that Elton John ticket, $250 to see him here in Kitchener at the Memorial Auditorium, which I know that was a while ago, right? When was that one? 2009? Oh, it doesn't matter. I know it's since 2007 because I went when I was working at this radio station, and I'll tell you how much I paid in a minute. But I don't think that's a bad price to see Elton John. And I'm cheap. Let's not forget that part. I got to see that show for FREE free because I don't know how the station got them, but they had a little like raffle or like enter your name in a draw to win Elton John tickets. We had 4 tickets or something like that, and I was one of the lucky winners. So I got to see Elton John for no dollars and no cents right in my own backyard. Loved it. It was a great show. So cool. Grant, what's the most you've ever spent on a ticket?
I think it was either $60 or $70. It was for the Jackson 5s when they played at Exhibition Stadium.
Get out! The Jackson 5.
And when I looked at my ticket, I thought, well, I'm going to be seated pretty good position. But when I got there, no, I was so far back that it looked like an ant. But you know what? If you think about it, like you said before, you were there. I got my T-shirt, and I still got, and I keep old tickets, and I don't know where they are, but and then I went to another concert at the Center in the Square, and the going price for those tickets it was a play, it was Elf. And
that's a good one.
Because they weren't selling, they said, Grant, do you want a couple? And they're $100 a pair. So they gave me $200 tickets for nothing.
That's my kind of price, Grant, my kind of price. And speaking of the Center in the Square, my beloved let me know this morning that there are still some tickets for that Lightfoot Band performance on Saturday. So we are going to make sure we're in the audience for that one. I'm really looking forward to it. Gosh, I love me some Gordon Lightfoot. And we had a couple of guys from the band on the show yesterday. It's going to be a lot of fun. Not $250. I think they're at $79 or something like that. So anyway, most expensive concert ticket or other ticket you ever bought. JB, good morning.
Morning, Farwell.
What'd you spend it on?
$625.
$625 for?
A progressive metal band called Sleep Token. They're from the UK.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of Sleep Token.
They've gotten pretty big. They were doing a tour in the spring. They were playing arenas all spring. They played Montreal at the Bell Centre before coming to Toronto. But when they chose Toronto, they decided to do 2 nights at Massey Hall.
Ooh.
So those tickets were real hard to come by.
Yeah.
And so, knowing how big they've gotten, I made a decision, they're never going to play something this small again the next time they come here. Might as well.
It's not really the atmosphere you'd expect a metal band to be playing, though.
No, but it was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I love it.
Absolutely perfect.
All right, and so worth every nickel.
Absolutely, wouldn't have it any other way.
All right, JB, great to hear from you, my friend. We're going to squeeze in one more, Mary.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning. I know you're always listening. Why do you wait till the last second to call me?
Well, it's 11:55. That's not the last second.
I
just thought of something, my dear.
30 seconds, my dear.
Anyway,
30 seconds.
My husband's from Liverpool. He saw the Beatles in the Cavern for 25 cents.
No, come on. You're killing
and
me.
He thought they'd go nowhere. He didn't like them.
I love it. Those Beatles, those four handsome lads from Liverpool, they're not going to go anywhere. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Taylor Swift, tonight, Rogers Centre in Toronto. Tickets currently on StubHub from $1,900 to $6,900. Are you in? We've been asking you on the flip side, the highest you've paid for a ticket to a concert or another event. I've got to, because the clock tells me to, get you to the 570 News Centre for an update. But we can continue this as we open up the phone lines for your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. I'm happy to hear from you on the Mike Farwell Show. Stay with us. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night.
Don't talk back.
Open phone lines. You get the chance to start the conversation here on the show every day from noon until 1. And if you want to carry over the conversation about those expensive concert and or event tickets you paid for, I'm all ears. We had Becky on the line. That obviously Becky is too busy to wait. And I understand. Busy days, busy show for busy people. But Becky, if you want to call back, we'll put you right at the top of our phone list. To the phones we go. Glenn is here. Good afternoon, Glenn.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Good. 2 ticket things. 2003 Rush, AC/DC, then the Rolling Stones for $10 Canadian.
What?
Yes. SARS Fest.
$10?
500,000 of my closest friends at Downsview Park.
I don't remember the tickets being that inexpensive, but wow.
I got them at the door off some guy, whatever.
Amazing.
And second one, September 2024 or October, John Mellencamp, Bob Dylan, Willie Nelson, $17 Canadian.
Glenn, you are my kind of guy. Like, how do you do this? Do you have a sign that just takes you to like the cheapest tickets?
No, that was just off the website. That was in Darien Lake, and I really tried to like Bob, and I can't get that hour and a half back.
You know what? I was just going to ask. I was going to ask how Bob was. Not good, eh?
He was. He played the odd in '83 or something like that. I didn't want to see him then, and anyhow, I tried to enjoy him, but it was painful.
I had a similar experience when I saw him in Toronto. Mark Knopfler opened 2012 or 2013. Yeah, Knopfler was amazing. Bob Dylan was awful.
Yeah, I know he's won a Nobel Prize, etc., but he was just it was painful. It was really painful. But I've experienced him, and he's 80. He's 82. Willie's 91, and Willie was bad. Like Willie was way better than Bob.
Willie was way better than Bob. I believe that. I believe that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Glenn, appreciate the call, my friend. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good to hear from you. Yeah, we went to see him at, I think it was still called Air Canada Centre, Bob Dylan. And I like Bob Dylan. Like, make no mistake, I like Bob Dylan. Highway 61 Revisited, one of my all-time favorite albums. But my goodness gracious, was he awful. He was wearing what could best be described as pajamas on stage, and he just appeared so uninterested in being there. It was bad. Anyway, 12 o'clock Talkback Hour continues. Jersey Bill, good afternoon.
And, of course, I'm going to mention the wonderful foreign policy we're going to start to see from the United States. Once he puts all of his wonderful appointments in place, I tell you, it just boggles the mind. I mean, he seems to want to add the worst left-wing kind of people, I suppose you could call Tulsi Gabbard a left-wing type of person, and the right-wing people who also are isolationists, I think, for the wrong reasons. And so he's going to change from trying to maintain and even build up our alliances to being completely transactional. And the more that a dictator who does horrible things to his own people gives him personal economic advantages. I mean, his Bibles are made in China, after all, and so many other things. And who knows what he can get from Russia. And then other places in the world where it's just going to be transactional. That's going to be the foreign policy. Well, good luck, America. Good luck, the world. Because now you're dealing with somebody who's as much of a kleptomaniac as any oligarch in China or Russia or any place else where money is more important than principle.
Are you worried, Billy?
Yeah. Over this, I'm really worried. I'm more worried about this than what he could do domestically, because we still at least have the Democrats as we can see from the way that both the president and the vice president has operated as loyal opposition, who hopefully the Democratic Party will, and I won't say rewarded, but the people might go back to them as a counterweight in the midterm elections for what Trump is proposing. But internationally, he's going to upset everything, even the relationship with Canada, and I don't see any good coming out of it.
All right, Billy, as always, appreciate the perspective from the southern side of the border. As we have already learned, Donald Trump would be quite content without Justin Trudeau in office here on this side of the border, which doesn't make Donald Trump altogether different than a lot of Canadians right now, does it? However, it is going to be a very interesting couple of years until those midterms, because as you heard during All News Mornings today with Mark Douglas and Christine Clark, the Republicans also now have won control of the House. So they've got the House, they've got the Senate, they've got the president. They've got it all. And boy, oh boy, is it going to be a ride. I don't know what kind of ride. I just know it's going to be a ride for the next little bit. And how everything plays out, obviously, remains to be seen. This is your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, where we talk about what you want to talk about on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio. The daily Talkback Hour from noon until 1 offers you the opportunity to start the conversation. Whatever it is that's on your mind, let us know about it. Pick up on something we talked about earlier today on the show. Whatever it is, we're here to listen, engage. That's what this show is all about. Andre, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I wanted to talk about one thing, but then it grows up because I pay so much attention to your show.
So you go from one thing to many things.
But I'm going to try because, anyway, thank you, Mike. Bill, New Jersey Bill, amen to that. But I go back to you, Mike, months ago when you said it's very unfortunate that America, that's all they have. And you said also that they have 4 years to redo what they have to do. Myself, I still don't like it, both. That's why I told you I don't care about America, but that's a way of saying that it's scary. Because, Trump is there. Let's say he does do good with money. And with Walmart here and changes, whatever, that convenient some people. But the thing is he has Elon Musk. And I don't like the way he runs the planet and all that stuff. But he, again, with money, he's good. So go back to my point I wanted to talk about is about the service dogs. When I was a kid, back in school, we had, I don't remember if it was once or twice a year, but we had a company who came to school and educate us, just like learning bikes, educate us how to ride a bike, educate us that this is what a service person is. It could be for anxiety, it could be for epileptic or whatever, you know what I mean? We are not there to judge, just like a person that has a handicap who parks. But the thing that's very hurtful now is you have a lot of new immigrants who are coming in and do not like pets. I'm okay with your opinion, but you're here and you have to respect, because I know myself, I was amazed when I used to go to the farmer's market with Grandpa and pick up some horse poop, 5 buckets of it in a car. I was like, what the heck? And he brought that home, and he has the best vegetables he ever grown. And I was like, But just like before, too, I also use my dog poo sometimes to fertilize my grass. So there is no toxic, no poison. But I'm very hurt that people come here and say, you know what, your dog should not be in the park or your dog should not go to a grocery store, or your dog should not go to school because some people are. So it's a dilemma, and we need to talk more about it, not shut it down, but talk about it. Have a good day, Mike.
Thanks, Andre. You too. 2 minutes and 42 seconds. We're never going to get back.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
That's our boy, Andre. Just follow the bouncing ball with his thoughts. Love the guy to pieces. Kyle, what are you doing back on my phones this afternoon?
Because you know why? Because I want to go back to the ticket prices because I love listening to the other stories of tickets. I'm going to be quick on this one. All right?
You spend $10,000 on an F1 weekend.
Don't forget, my dad is a big race car fanatic. And
yes.
He put me in go-karts, and then I tried to be a Formula One driver, but obviously I ran out of money. But I did try to get to Formula One. I did open-wheel racing and all that stuff. So I got seeing the democracy commercialized. But I want to go back to the ticket prices because you're going to laugh at this.
Okay.
So back in I believe it was the early 80s, my dad and my grandfather went to the Montreal Forum, and they were playing. Now, I think it's a team that should not be named the Boston Bruins. They were playing them in I think it was the quarterfinals or the semifinals. I don't remember, right? But back in the day. And my dad got tickets to my grandfather because he's never been to a hockey game, like an NHL hockey game. So my dad said, let's go. So my grandfather, being like you, Eastern European, no money in the pocket, cheap and all that stuff, they get to the game, and people are offering, now don't forget, this is back in the 80s, about $1,500 to $2,000 a ticket, which is a lot of money. I mean, even today's money, it's a lot of money. And so they were offering at the game $1,500 a ticket to watch the playoffs. And my grandfather was laughing and saying, Ralph, sell the tickets. You have to sell the tickets. This is good money. And my dad said to him, you know what? I did not drive all this way for us to sell the tickets for us to go sit in a bar to watch the hockey game. We are going to the Forum, and we're going to watch the game. So sure enough, they did, and my grandfather was hooked ever since then. So that's the story. But yes, back in the day, they were offered $1,500 a ticket for playoffs. So I thought that's pretty cool. So there you go, Mike.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate the story. We didn't come all this way to make money. We came all this way to watch the hockey game. I love the commitment. I love it. Greg, good afternoon.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Regarding Taylor Swift, my sister-in-law from Atlanta flew her and her 3 adult daughters up for the Taylor Swift concert, and their trip started by paying $5,000 a ticket.
Hang on. There's 4 of them? So there's $20,000 just on tickets?
Yeah, mom and 3 adult daughters.
And they came from Atlanta to Toronto to see the show.
Yeah. Mom's footing the bill. And that doesn't include flights, hotel, food. They're up here for 3 days, I believe.
Greg, are you pulling my leg right now?
No.
20,000 on tickets?
Yeah.
Dang.
They're far better off than I am.
I think they're far better off than a lot of people by the sounds of things.
Right. But, that's crazy money.
It sure is. Well, thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, but my best event trip is renting. 4 of us rented an RV, drove to Talladega, went to a NASCAR race. We spent a week down in the States. It was awesome.
I bet you it didn't cost you $10,000.
No, I think it was less than $3,000 each.
There you go.
Per couple, yeah.
And that's in the RV, driving down, taking in the race, etc.
Yep.
Attaboy. Good job, Greg. Appreciate the call.
Have a good day.
Thanks, you too. There's your difference between F1 and NASCAR. Not that I'm trying to stereotype. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. I was sharing with you earlier today on the show a conversation at Cambridge City Council about the use of the notwithstanding clause, involuntary treatment, clearing out encampments. Some had characterized the debate as heated. I didn't think it was. There were definitely different points of view, but I wouldn't call it heated in any way. But I said then that I would share with you later, and I'm going to do that now. It is now later. What happened in the city of Hamilton, because I find this really interesting. This is what you have to say in order to get kicked out of the meeting that you are a part of as an elected representative. And I think what you're about to hear from a councillor in Hamilton is very similar to what we heard from Councillor Adam Cooper in Cambridge during the debate, where he said, yeah, I understand what you're saying about being opposed to involuntary treatment, but what's the alternative? No treatment at all? Have a listen to what Councillor Matt Francis had to say at Hamilton City Council this week.
As other municipalities continue to create their own rules related to no longer allowing encampments in parks, our Hamilton taxpayers are being taken advantage of. Over the past few years, we have signaled to all the homeless people throughout the province of Ontario that Hamilton is a place to come and camp. It's been asked, what's our solution? Our solution is housing, but we can't house every single individual from all over the province of Ontario in this city alone. We have consistently invited more and more people and told them that Hamilton parks are the sanctuary for your tents and drugs, and we will do nothing about it. Now, over 15 mayors have signed on asking Premier Ford to use the notwithstanding clause, and some members here are going to refuse to do the same. If there's ever time to signal to the homeless of the entire province to come to Hamilton, rejecting this motion is it. We have turned our city into a provincial campground. Mothers with their children have the right to use the parks that they pay for. Everyday taxpayers have the right to go for walks in their parks. Children have the right to use the park without fear of stepping on needles. Families have the right to use the park without fear of passing by someone with a shotgun in their tent. Women have the right to feel safe in their own backyards. Currently, many do not. We can't keep kicking this issue down the road. It's time to act now. And rather than being so intent on standing up for drug addicts, using our parks as a provincial campground, we need to start standing up for the rights of the everyday taxpayers to use the amenities that they pay for. And rather than wearing
I'm going to have to actually have the chair over to Councillor Clark because I want to call a point of order, actually.
What's your point of order?
My point of order is that the member in debating his motion is suggesting that we have certain motivations around this table as to the work that we've tried to do to address the encampment issues in our city. And that is inappropriate for the member to suggest that there are motivations around this table that are not the ones that we've actually stated. And in fact, the motion, the member is also suggesting that things are fact which are not fact. Again, I guess that might be a part of his right as a member to suggest those things, but to suggest that there are members around this council table and committee table that have motivations other than the ones that we've actually stated is inappropriate, Chair.
And there you have the point of order, which was upheld. The councillor, Matt Francis, was given the chance to apologize and withdraw his comments. He did not, and he was kicked out of the meeting. That's how you get kicked out of a council meeting when you're a councillor in the city of Hamilton. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
Turn it up!
Rent prices coming down because unemployment goes up? How's that going to square with the half of Canadians living paycheck to paycheck that we heard about yesterday? I mean, it's great. The rent is less, but I don't have a job to pay the rent anyway. So there's that aspect of it. And how to solve a problem like Canada Post. I am fascinated by the latest labor dispute, the fact that we could be, I mean, listen, if you're going to take job action, take it when you have the greatest amount of leverage. And about 6 weeks out from Christmas is a hell of a way to get leverage, right? So, yeah, but honest to goodness, we will not notice it one iota. I shouldn't say that, but we will have very little impact here in the city. However, in rural and more remote communities, they will feel it and feel it dearly. I just don't know how we square this circle. The mail must get through, right? These communities must be served. But you can't go on losing billions of dollars year over year over year and expect to continue operating as is. Really interesting times. It is your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, where we encourage you to make a phone call, start the conversation, and Grant is next to do just that. Good afternoon, Grant.
Yeah, good afternoon. Well, I wish it would bring down the food prices, too. And I just got off the phone before you guys got into this talkback with a Liberal person, but he was unwilling to...
Wait, you phoned a Liberal person? Because we didn't have a Liberal person on our Talkback Hour.
Oh, yeah. I've been calling repetitively.
Who'd you call?
Just the Liberal Party.
And what did you call them about?
About wanting to get my food hampered, like I told you.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I mentioned, well, the Liberal Party's responsible for the high cost of food. And, oh, no. And did not want to listen anymore. Like, what's wrong with these people? Like if I'm in his position, I'm going to help this person out and get something done. And these yahoos don't want to do anything. And I thought your program for this dog thing was on at 10:30. And one other thing, maybe what they should do at the Postal Service is higher up being audited.
All right. Well, there you go. An audit might be a good place to start to figure out where the corporation is hemorrhaging the money that it's hemorrhaging. I'm sorry that you thought our dog segment was going to be at 10:30 this morning. It was at 10 o'clock, and I'm positive that that's the way I told you about it yesterday. I said, this morning at 10 is when we're going to talk about the dog issue. As for calling your MP, because the federal government is responsible for the high food prices, I get it, and we can talk about inflation or just inflation as Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre framed it, and very cleverly. It works because Grant wants his federal member of parliament to make the food prices lower. I get that. I don't think we can overlook the amount of profit-taking on the part of grocers that is involved in all of this. That's for sure. I will also add, though, excellent use of yahoos.
We have a bunch of yahoos.
I love a bunch of yahoos. Back to the phones on your Talkback Hour. Greg, good afternoon.
Hey, Mike, some ticket talk.
Okay, ticket talk.
I'll be quick. First of all, the highest, the Boss, a year ago March, $2.50. I think you're familiar with that.
I am familiar with that.
Yeah, and the cheapest, 95 cents, April wine. And that was at Lulu's when Y95 radio station sponsored it.
Oh, Y90. I used to listen to that station all the time.
95 cents for April wine at Lulu's. And then the only other story I have is I happened to stumble upon a season seat for the Leafs, a split-up arrangement, and ended up with the last call at Maple Leaf Gardens. We paid $90 each was the face value. And I don't know if you remember the scene around there. There's like a big tent and a party and Tom Cochran going on next door. And long story short, we thought, well, we'll either see the game or that party sounds good too. Basically, we found some guy to find us party passes and gave us another $210 each. And we went into the party. So basically, sold $90 tickets for $500 each, and then went and partied with Tom Cochran and company. And so that was probably the biggest ticket exchange I was involved in. But yeah, 95 cents April wine, $2.50 the Boss.
All right, Greg, appreciate that. 95 cents to see April wine. Not a bad price to see the concert. Jeff, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Afternoon. Hey, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. So this postal strike thing that's happening.
Yeah.
Just a little quick story to share with your audience. I had an Amazon package that I was returning going back about a month and a half ago. And I had the box. I did you have to do the printout. And I brought the printout in, and I went down to one of the postal stations and handed the box in. And the lady looked at me and said, "Well, you have to tape that piece of paper onto the box." And she had a tape gun and a roll sitting on her counter. And I said, "Okay, can you do that for me?" And she said, "No, you have to buy a roll of tape," and pointed at the wall for a roll of packing tape that was $5 and something cents. And I looked at her and I said, "Are you kidding me? For 2 pieces of tape that is worth like 2 cents?" I got in my car and drove back home and taped it on, not because I'm too cheap to buy the tape, just because to make a point. And I came back and handed it to her and said, "You guys have had it too good for too long."
That's crazy. So she would not tape the label onto the box for you?
Nope, but I got a good news to the end of the story.
Okay.
I phoned management, and I talked to the manager, and he cared, and he was passionate, and I think somebody's butt was going to get kicked in a big way.
Well, I suppose if that's the good outcome, then good for you.
Well, I mean, it was not that I want to get somebody in trouble.
No, but you didn't deserve the treatment you got either, for sure.
Yeah, like they've, I don't know. I've known people that have worked in the Postal Service, and I don't think it's such a bad gig, but they got to get in the game of, I'm like you. I've been in the private sector my whole life, and we work very hard for our dollars, and some of these public sector jobs are pretty damn good. And I think they need to start appreciating what they have and maybe working a little bit harder instead of trying to get more and more all the time, Jeff,
I hear where you're coming from. I appreciate that call, too. And what I would say, it's not insulting to point out that fact, right? That public sector jobs tend to be 15 to 30%, take your pick on the current estimate, higher though in terms of wages. Benefits are far superior for the most part. And that's not insulting somebody who's got the job that they have. It's just pointing out, hey, in the private sector, it's a little bit different for us. And I think that if you get accustomed to that, the wages and the benefits, et cetera, then that's the only lens through which you view things, which I suppose is natural, isn't it? But anyway, good point made. Thanks for sharing the story. A quick break. Joe, you're next, and there's a line open for you, too, if you want to be a part of our 12 o'clock Talkback Hour today. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Every day from noon until 1, we open up the phone lines, providing you this opportunity to start the conversation. Let's get back to the phones. Joe, good afternoon.
Afternoon, Mike. Listen, Mike, if you give me 10 grand cash, 5-star meal, first-class accommodations, and a front row seat, I might consider going to a Swiftie concert. Other than that, I wouldn't give you a wooden nickel for this crap.
Listen, you don't have to like her, but she's the biggest act in the world, period.
I understood Beatlemania. I don't understand this crap, but I digress.
Okay.
That concert I went to for $20 was Burton Cummings with Randy Bachman. They played BTO and Guess Who all night long at Lulu's. Those were some of the best shows and the best days when that venue was going. But anyway, my big concern right now is timing. It couldn't be worse possible timing, Mike, for the election cycle, because now with Trump coming in, we have Trudeau and his circus clowns at the head of the table negotiating our future away to a bunch of ruthless gangsters. And the timing couldn't be worse. Trudeau, and on top of that, Trudeau doesn't have the stones when about 100,000 migrants come from up here from the States because they got nowhere else to go, or they're closer to the northern border than to deport them out south of the border. But he doesn't have the stones to say, no, we're not going to take you because we don't have anywhere to put them. Like our encampments are full. Where are they going to go? So, this is the worst possible timing. We need the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre at the helm for these negotiations, not the circus clowns. Thanks, Mike.
All right, Joe. Appreciate it. Well, that's what Donald Trump wants, too. Maybe Donald Trump wants that because he thinks Pierre Poilievre's an easier mark. I don't know. I don't know that there's also like the transition or Trump doesn't officially take office until January. It's not a whole lot of time before our next election, federally, in October of next year, at the latest. Anyway, I guess we'll see, and time will absolutely tell. Rob, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Good day, sir. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm absolutely wonderful, thank you. Tomorrow's Friday. What could be better than a Thursday, the day before Friday?
Absolutely. Friday, Junior, the day before the weekend. I love a good Thursday.
Hockey Friday.
You
But
betcha.
anyway, I'm calling to say about the Swiftie thing.
Yeah.
I'm 56. I've been a punk rocker my entire life. I always have been. I always will be. I'll die one. I have been to hundreds and hundreds of shows. I have seen thousands of bands. Not exaggerating. It's been my entire life since I was 13 years old. They'll bury me backstage. They really will at a show. But this whole Swiftie thing, I think is amazing. This is brilliant. This isn't just a woman singing. This is a phenomenon. This is a whole movement. And I think for the way the world is these days, for young women, older women, middle-aged women, anybody, girls, any female that's into this, good for them. Good for them. My hockey and my gig buddy's daughter is going downtown tomorrow for the tailgate party that they've got set up because she couldn't get tickets. And she's just over the moon. She's 20 years old, so it covers across the spectrum age-wise. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I think it's brilliant for music, whether you like her music or not. I think it's brilliant for young girls. It's brilliant for women, and I say kudos to that. And I don't say kudos to the people charging a bloody fortune for the tickets. It's the scalpers are scum, but they always have been. But good for the girls. I hope they all have a good time, good fun, and party on, ladies. And I'll see you tomorrow after hockey.
Look forward to it, Rob. Thank you. Rob is one of our regular callers to Rangers Talk, which will, of course, happen tomorrow night following Rangers Pete's at the Memorial Auditorium. Paul Fixter and I do at least 1 hour, usually more these days, taking your calls, talking about the game that just happened, the league in general. Just to echo what Rob just said, I could not possibly agree more. I don't need to add anything to it. Taylor Swift is not my cup of tea. Until she started showing up at football games, I honestly didn't even know what she looked like. Honest to goodness. Because it's just not my thing. But she is an absolute force and a phenomenon. And where's the bad? Like, where's the bad? She does lots of great things. So anyway, I'm 100% with what we just heard from Rob. You go, girl. And guys that are going to the show, have a great time. It's your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. An update for you on a story that we started the show with today, and that was my shameless appeal to you for help in getting the new vending machine for our workplace kitchen into the building. It's a long and twisted story as to why we needed help, but my boss came to me a couple of weeks ago and said, Farwell, people were so invested in your piece of pizza on the plate in the fridge story from a couple of months ago that I'm counting on you to help us find the people or the person to get this vending machine into our building. So I made the appeal, and I knew, because there has not been a single time. Sometimes I don't even ask and you come through, which is the best stuff. It's just a random story and all of a sudden you've got the solution and it shows up at our doorstep. Anyway, I had no doubt. And the boss had told me that if I am successful in soliciting your help to get this vending machine into our building, that he would buy me a chocolate bar from said vending machine once it's here. Lo and behold, it has all worked out. I do believe, like, we're 98% of the way to the solution. And the show is not even quite over yet. So this is the way you work your magic. You are very much appreciated. I thank you sincerely. I will think of you as I enjoy my chocolate bar, and I will send you the photographic evidence once the vending machine is in place in our workplace kitchen. So I'll keep you posted on that. But it sounds, the boss poked his head in here not too long ago and said he thinks we're on to something, and it's a good something. An email I got from Rob to Mike at 570news.com. Took my youngest daughter to see Taylor Swift 10 years ago. The opening act was Ed Sheeran. You know, I went to see Ed Sheeran last summer. Not exactly by choice. It just sort of happened that way. And I thoroughly enjoyed the show. I mean, maybe it was the company. My beloved and I had a great time. We were on a little getaway, but I had not intended on seeing the show and ended up seeing it anyway. And it was not the worst show that I've ever seen. I mean, if it was less than $2,000, maybe I would go see Taylor Swift. I don't know. Probably not. But who knows? If the right person asked, I guess maybe I would. Anyway, don't hate the player. Just hate the game if you want to hate the game. I think it's a pretty cool thing that's happening. Speaking of stories that started the show, if I go back to the vending machine for a moment, I made a note of something else that happened yesterday. I decided I needed to make the shameless appeal for support with the vending machine today. And I appreciate, again, your help in that regard. But something else that I saw yesterday with my very own eyes needs to be discussed, because I think it is something that perhaps we overlook or just don't talk about. It's like the elephant in the room that we refuse to acknowledge, particularly when it comes to our municipal budgets. So I promise you that story to start our show tomorrow when we reconvene at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, okay? Oh, you're going to love it. It's Friday Fun Day when we talk about finances. You know I love me some numbers. But that's all the time we've got for today. We'll save that story for first thing tomorrow. Rob Snow and Now You Know coming up from 1 until 3. All news afternoons with Paul McPhee and Aaron Anderson after that. Devin Robertson is our guy on the other side of the glass. My name is Mike Farwell. Bye for now.